Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Negotiation. I'm really excited to bring you a conversation I've been waiting almost a year to have. And now that she's left Alibaba and joined L'Oreal, it really was the right time to talk with my friend, Chloé Goncalves. As their newly minted Asia e-commerce manager, we naturally dove into the fascinating world of cosmetics in China. We talk about what types of cosmetics are most in demand in China, the popularity of live streaming in the beauty space, cutting-edge marketing tactics for cosmetics that is particular to China, and why there are significantly more cosmetic consumers in China than there are in the West that are male. Enjoy.
If you're a brand, you have to focus your marketing investment into one or two maximum hero products. So it's easier for a consumer to identify your brand with one specific SKU. So once you choose this SKU, then you invest, I would say, 50 to 60% of your marketing budget within those SKU across all different channels. So when a consumer talk about your brand, you would see, this hero product on Xiaohongshu, on WeChat, on Weibo, and this is how, the consumers will recognize you.
Home to over 4 billion people, the Asia-Pacific region boasts one of the most powerful consumer markets on the planet. Not only is it home to half the world's under 30 population, but it's also home to more than half the world's internet users. It's a market no globally minded brand should ignore, but entering markets like China is no easy task. Just ask the likes of Microsoft, Google, Uber, and Facebook. Times are changing, and with the right partners, doors are slowly opening as more and more companies find success expanding into the markets of the Middle Kingdom. I myself spent 8 years in China, mostly as a venture capitalist, helping early-stage tech companies enter the Asia-Pacific market successfully. This show is dedicated to uncovering and examining successful China entry and growth strategies by interviewing the people behind those success stories. My name is Todd Embley, and welcome to The Negotiation, brought to you by WPIC Marketing and Technologies. Chloé, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We have been trying to get you on the show for quite some time, for a while, and it has a lot to do with where you were working before, so you can talk to us about that and include that in a bit of a discussion around how did you end up in China? What have you been doing there over the last several years?
Well, yeah, it's quite an interesting story. Actually, I was not connected to China at all during all my my study. I did a master degree in digital marketing and one exchange semester in South Korea. And at that time already, I knew I wanted to go back to Asia at some point because I found them so advanced also in terms of technology. Then I went back to France and finished my study, started working. And I received on LinkedIn an email from Brian Wong, the old vice president of Alibaba, about a new program that they were launching, the Alibaba Global Leadership Academy. And this program wanted to have foreigners from all over the world, so they could come to Hangzhou, China, for at least 1 year to, discover the company, learn the language, do some rotations between in different type of business units. So we could get, all the story of Alibaba, know well the company, and then go back to our home country, in Europe, in the US, etc. So I was selected among, I think, 3,000 applicants. I still feel so lucky that I got to join. So I joined Alibaba in 2016, and after 1 year in the company, I decided to stay longer. Half of the people who were recruited went back to their home country, but I was learning intensively Chinese and just really loved my experience there. So I stayed 3 years in total, working 6 months for AliExpress, 1.5 years for Tmall World, and then 1.5 years for Tmall Global. And basically my role was to help European brands in the cosmetic, also modern baby category, to enter China, open stores on Tmall Global, and make sure they have a great success in China. And I recently moved from Alibaba and joined a new company, which is L'Oreal. So now I'm going to the brand side and actually helping them do e-commerce in Asia.
Okay, so you said you were studying Chinese fairly intensely at the time. 你的中文好不好？
很好，还可以。
Tell us a little bit about what you actually saw and experienced while living in Hangzhou, even for a brief period of time, compared to how much had changed now that you're back living in Paris.
Yeah, it was amazing to arrive in Hangzhou. People were telling me, yeah, it's just a small city, 9 million people. I was like, wow. So, and Hangzhou is quite different from other cities in China, where it's way more international, like Beijing and Shanghai. Hangzhou is way more local, so people couldn't speak English. So at the time, it was quite difficult actually to get used to the lives there because I couldn't speak a word of Chinese. If I wanted to take a taxi to my home or to a hotel, I needed to have it written in Chinese because I couldn't read the pinyin. So it took some time to get used to it. But what I realized is that I love being out of my comfort zone and discovering new things every day. And as you mentioned, China is just like evolving so fast, and I really loved being part of this move, especially in Alibaba, which is such an innovative company. It's big company, but it still acts as a startup. Projects are being created every week. I joined Tmall World team, who was expanding Taobao and Tmall outside of China. We were 15, and after 6 months, we were more than 200. Like, it's just the pace is crazy, and it was an amazing opportunity to be a part of that.
That's incredible. I mean, yeah, the growth. We can't talk about it enough. We talk about it with a lot of guests on the show, and you really cannot, you really can't, like, through a podcast or through, a blog like this, if this is ending up on our YouTube channel, you really can't get an impression of what everybody talks about. Everybody does talk about it. Everybody mentions it to some degree, and you just can't possibly imagine what we're talking about unless you go there. I've said it before. I was in China for about 2 weeks back in 2007, and I thought, I need to get into the crane business because I've never seen more cranes in my life than I saw when I was in China. Okay, from a high level, maybe just give us a 30,000-foot overview of the cosmetics market in China.
Sure. Well, the cosmetic market in China has been growing a lot for the past years. China is the world's second largest cosmetic market in the world after the US, with an estimated revenue of 22 billion USD. But this amount is supposed to triple by 2024. Among all this, market, 25% of the sales comes from e-commerce. And actually, COVID has accelerated a lot of this trend. Within the cosmetic category, the biggest subcategory is skincare. Skincare represents 50% of the sales within the cosmetics. Then you have hair care, then you have makeup, oral care. Our Chinese consumers, they spend a lot on the beauty products. I think we're going to talk a bit about later, but they have a really extensive beauty routine. So they spend quite a lot. Usually, like more than half of a Chinese woman, they spend at least 3,000 RMB per year, which is about $450 per year. But there's a marginally higher proportion who spends even more, like the middle class and a consumer who loves finding niche products, luxury products. And overall, I would say the market in China is mostly taken by Western brands. Around 60% of the market, even more, 70% of the market is taken by Western brands, but we see a big rise of Chinese brands or C brands that are growing more and more in the market.
You mentioned that they would spend about 450, and I think you did me a favor and put it in kind of a US dollar conversion there. As a male, I guess I don't really even know how much cosmetics that actually amounts to. So may I ask what somebody like you, a young French woman, average person would spend on cosmetics in a year?
I would spend less because I don't have such a big routine as they have. Chinese consumers, they have at least 6 steps, so they need 6 different products. I would spend maybe 100, 150 euro per year on cosmetics.
So that routine, that's really interesting. And I'm trying to look even into the questions that I want to talk to you about. And I'm not sure if we actually get into that routine specifically. So if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to ask you, what is this routine? And it kind of ties into what types of cosmetic products are most in demand in China. So can you tie my question about what is this routine you're referring to and tie that into what types of cosmetic products are most demand in China? And then after we talk about that, I want to know how it differs from the rest of the world, if it's not obvious.
Of course. Well, I think that something that is really different in China is that beauty is associated with white skin and light skin. So your consumers would use a lot of whitening skincare product as well as sunscreen on a daily basis. So if we take a look at their routine, the steps I was mentioning about, first step would be to remove your makeup, so makeup remover. Then you would have a facial cleanser. Then you would put on a mask, the mask sheet. Then you would put a toner. Then you would have eye cream or serum. And then you would put your moisturizing cream and then sun cream. So that's basically all the steps that, women in China are actually taking, which is much more, than what we would do in the West.
How long does that take? I'm thinking it's dinner time now. How long does that take?
I would say 30 minutes. I also discovered that when I was in China. I think a lot of these steps actually also comes from Korea and Japan. I had a Korean friends in the program, and they were always putting face mask in the morning, at night, while they were cooking breakfast. It's just part of their routine, of their morning routine. They include cosmetics and taking care of your skin within this morning and night routine.
Can we talk a little bit about something that you said there? And I think it'd be interesting. Do you have an idea? Can you explain to our audience why the white skin or the light skin, where that comes from?
Well, it's well seen to have white skin in China because it means that you have a job in the office and that you don't take the sun a lot. Usually, farmers and everyone working in the countryside or farmers, they are outside a lot, so they have brown skin, so they mean they have less money. So that's culturally why having white skin is actually, a beauty element for China. And that's also why, they use a lot of sunscreen. You see them also in China. Every time there is some sun, they have those kind of umbrellas to protect from the sun, because they have white skin. So if they take sunburn, it's actually, way stronger than we would have in our skin in the West. So that's basically the reason.
Right. And I know this as well. I've looked into it, obviously, in my time there. You can't help but notice that on a sunny day, everybody is walking around with umbrellas. So they use umbrellas for sun, they use umbrella for rain. And it really is exactly what you said, that it's a sign of wealth if you have light skin, because that means you don't need to work outside, and that's where it came from. It really is that simple. So it just, I kind of always felt bad, I guess, in a way, of how much harder people there had to, if they were just naturally darker skinned, they were already, kind of put behind and had to work harder. And I saw them, working harder just in the amount of cosmetics that they would wear in order to try to get as light as possible.
Yeah, completely.
How does the suite of products differ in China? And we've already alluded to, a lot of light tones, but how does the product suite generally differ in China than it does from maybe the Western world?
I think in addition to the whitening trend, I think also in China there's high pollution and stressful lifestyle. So consumers are really constantly looking for products that focus on a specific problem. So blemish skin, acne skin, blackheads, dark circles, sensitive skins. Yes. So there's really a need for this type of product, sensitive skin. And I think another point on what differs from the rest of the world, and I think we're going to talk about it later, is male skincare and male cosmetic. There's a really big rise of male grooming. Men start also men also want to start taking care of their skin and try on luxury products. They even start putting on makeup. I guess you've heard of the famous Li Jiaqi, the famous Chinese blogger, who is also called the lipstick guy. So he has very, very nice skin and doing a lot of live streaming about beauty products, but also lipsticks that he tries on himself. So this definitely is a product that would not be bought or not really trendy in the West, but that is actually working really well in China.
I was gonna maybe try to bring that up because we've seen that he is one of the biggest influencers in China, and he's influential because he live streams while, his show is about cosmetics and makeup and brands and application and the whole thing. So already that's, an amazing difference in of itself. Let's talk real quick. I'm going to put you on the spot. Live streaming. How huge has live streaming been? I can't think of another market segment that it's been bigger for than cosmetics. I mean, it's just been huge.
Yeah, I mean, live streaming is huge among all category. China is definitely the largest live streaming industry in the world. I think before COVID, there were like 500 million live streaming users, but I think this number skyrocketed after the COVID because people were actually stuck at home, and that was a really good way to sell their products online. So yeah, live streaming is just booming, especially during festivals. We see like brands and bloggers doing 24/7 live streaming because what is really interesting in China is that actually consumers use e-commerce not to save time as we would do in the West, but to spend time. So even though they don't want to buy anything, they would connect on Taobao and Tmall to watch live streaming, to watch videos, to read blogs and articles, etc. So that's also part of, the way they like to be entertained is like, at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., even sometime 12 or 1 a.m., 2 a.m., they would connect and see what live stream are going on and discover new products. So that's the kind of thing they do. And now we've seen so many apps that are doing live streaming. I think there are more than 100 live streaming app or platform that can do live streaming. So this is definitely a big trend. And especially for cosmetics, it's really, really trendy. And we've seen a lot of beauty bloggers like Li Jiaqi and Via doing this type of live streaming to help the brand boost the products. And actually a lot of brands, they sometimes buzz thanks to those KOLs, because if Li Jiaqi or Via accepts to feature one of your products, it's just a really big, showcase and a big boom for your sales. So it's definitely something that is trendy in the market.
KOCs. So we have KOLs. Most of our audience now knows what KOLs are. We've started to cover KOCs. And so maybe you can explain a little bit about what a KOC is.
KOCs means key opinion consumers. So it's basically influencers, but that are very smaller than big KOLs, key opinion leaders. So they would have maybe from, 5,000 to 30,000, maybe sometimes 200K followers. So a smaller audience. But what we found is that actually consumers can relate more to those influencers because they know they're not obviously paid like Li Jiaqi to sponsor product and to talk about brands. So especially middle-class consumers who are more and more looking for niche products, they don't want those mass brands. They want to find, those niche products, and that's why they would maybe trust more KOCs. And we've seen the trend of KOCs develop as well on WeChat, where you have more and more what we call private groups. So, you're an influencer and you would build a community on WeChat and create a group of 500 people, because you cannot have more than 500 people on a WeChat group, and exchange with them and share your latest tips and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that is important for brands. And that's why, we advise brands to at least invest 30% of their annual sales target into marketing. But this marketing investment has to include a various of different platforms. We say 360 strategy, a 360-degree strategy, because it has to include, marketing inside platforms, so inside Tmall, inside Jingdong, but also outside those e-commerce platforms like Little Red Book, where you have a lot of beauty influencers, Bilibili, Douyin, etc., WeChat in private WeChat groups. So because there are so many consumers and they are also scattered in so many platforms, it's very important to include them all and have a 360 strategy to reach them.
We tend to have a pretty savvy audience, so I'm sure that they're going to understand and know all the platforms that you just mentioned as well. But thank you for taking on that question. I appreciate that. So how does the consumer behavior differ in China versus the West when it comes to shopping for cosmetics? And I realize, as I've realized in all of my interviews lately, that COVID has a special place in questions like this because it always impacts the answer. But that said, how does the consumer behavior how does the consumer behavior differ in China when it comes to shopping for cosmetics?
I think the main difference is the time they put in the shopping process, because in China, like the product safety is a very key concern for consumers when it comes to purchasing skincare products. So they will try to collect as many data as possible from different type of channels. For example, they will go on Tmall. Actually, the search frequency for beauty products on Tmall is 7 times higher than on Baidu, which is kind of the Google of China. So they would go on Tmall and they will want to see, all the consumers' comments, to make sure that, they have good reviews. Then they will go on Little Red Book, which is kind of the Instagram of China, to see if people are also talking about the brands. They will go on WeChat, on Weibo, like they will really see different type of platform before making a decision. So that's really something that is particular to Chinese consumers. And that's also why it's very important for brands to use, like we mentioned a bit before, this marketing strategy of having, exposure and KOC and KOLs on all platforms, because, Chinese consumers really need this trust and really need to have people who have experienced the brand before making a purchase.
Does it change with age? Like as people age, does their buying behavior change? And what about anything to do with offline behavior?
Yeah, of course, it changed with age. What is really particular about Chinese consumers is that they're very young. 80% of the Chinese cosmetic consumer are less than 35 years old, but actually they start buying a cosmetics product early on, like from 18 years old. And what is really interesting is that from 18 to like 25, they will try as much as possible products. So they will just buy many different brands, try a lot of different products and brands. And then from 25, 30, once they know, what works well for their skin and, try many brands, they will stick to a specific product or specific brand that they like. So that's why it's very important for brands to catch those Z generation and millennials at an early stage of their skincare discovery journey, because that's when, they're willing to try different type of products.
So given what you just said, what about marketing strategy then? It must differ because you're maybe doubling down on the current customers you have that are older versus trying to convert, and then maybe spending more than you would in the West on the acquisition for the brand when they're younger because of how important it is, correct?
Yeah, it's true. But actually the marketing investment, I wouldn't look at, how old is your consumer, but I would more look at what is your hero product. If you're a brand, you have to focus your marketing investment into 1 or 2 maximum hero products. So it's easier for a consumer to identify your brand with one specific SKU. So once you choose this SKU, then you invest, I would say, 50 to 60% of your marketing budget within those SKU across all different channels. So when a consumer talk about your brand, you would see, this hero product on Xiaohongshu, on WeChat, on Weibo, and this is how, the consumers will recognize you. So I think it's more, on this side that brands should focus rather than the age, because that's how, you create a buzz on your product in China.
Thank you for that. That's very insightful. I was not expecting that. So can you break down a little bit some of the products like a Shiseido, L'Oreal, some of the other brands? Can you talk about what are their hero products?
Sure. Some brands have like hero products for more than 10, 15 years. For example, SK2, they have a legendary facial treatment essence who was introduced in like 1980s. Estée Lauder, they have a advanced night repair serum. Laneige is very famous for their sleep mask. Vichy is very famous for their mineral 89 bottles. So every brand has this type of hero products, and it doesn't mean that they're not selling the rest. It's just that hero product will allow you to bring traffic to your store, and then once people come naturally to your store, then they will discover the rest of your line. And one strategy is to do like bundle pack, so you have the hero product plus another product for the consumers to try the other product from your range. So that's usually how it works. It's like bringing traffic to your hero to the store thanks to your hero products, and then having consumers discover the rest once they're already a consumer of your hero product.
You also mentioned the cosmetics for men in China as a significant market share. In the West, it's pretty strictly female. Can you talk a little bit more about why are men in China so interested in cosmetics? What kind of products are they using, and what are they using them for?
So it's true that we're entering in China what we call a male beauty era. The sales of male beauty products have really increased year on year. And actually the search for the growth of the search of skincare products for male is actually higher now than women. Men consumers, they're also very sophisticated. They want to take care of their skin, and they're willing to try different products as well. So what works the most is, of course, skincare. So, like you have creams and serums. Some more adventurous would try lipstick, like a Li Jiaqi, but it's mostly, skincare products. But actually, there's still a lack of choice in China for men-only products, especially in facial skincare, which is a good opportunity for brands, to launch on the market. There's a big opportunity for that. I remember in 2018, L'Oreal did a joint study with TMIC, which is a Tmall Marketing Innovation Center. And together, they gather data from consumers to identify, what would be the key trending categories. That's also how, for example, Mars created a spicy sneaker bar specifically for China. And what they saw is that, there was a very strong demand for men care, and they created L'Oreal men care line specifically for China based on this study. So there's definitely a strong demand and a good opportunity for brands to launch their men care line in China.
Tips and advice that you would have for a cosmetic brand that's looking to enter the Chinese market before we get into specifics. This is some general cosmetic specific advice.
Sure. I think my first tip would be to find the right partner, especially if you're a small brand and don't know well the market. You really need to have a local partner that will help you do all the operation, the marketing, the logistics, etc. So you take some time to find a good TP, the Tmall partners, those agencies will help you. You need someone to be on the ground and be reactive. As we mentioned, China is such a fast-moving environment, and there's more and more competitors. So it's very important to have a good partner whom you trust to work with you on this market. Then second tips, as mentioned before, is really to build your brand around 1 or 2 SKU maximum. So even if you have 100 products in your home country, don't bring those 100 products in China. Just start with a range of 10 products and you try the market, and then you identify those 2 hero products, and then you just focus your marketing strategy on those hero products. And the last tip would be to invest in marketing, because, we've talked about it also before, but there is so many different social media platform, e-commerce platform, live streaming platforms. So it's very important for brands to invest in marketing, to put their product and their brand out there, because otherwise there won't be any organic traffic coming to their store. So China is a long-term journey. In terms of investment, we usually advise brands to invest 20 to 30% of their annual sales target in marketing to make sure that they can achieve their sales forecast and their sales goals.
What about some cool cutting edge tactics that you see in cosmetics companies using to sell their products to consumers in China? I mean, we talked about live streaming, KLCs, but that's almost mainstream at this point. That's not even what you would consider to be, cool and cutting edge. So any interesting, cool cutting edge tactics that you're seeing that are being used in China, especially when they're not used the same or similarly in the West?
Sure. Well, live streaming is definitely one, but another one I'm thinking about is IP collaboration. So IP collaboration is very, very, very trendy and very used, specifically for cosmetic brands. So IP collaboration is basically having 2 brands doing a co-branding activity and creating a specific line or specific packaging or specific range of cosmetic products. And those IP collaborations are usually done during festivals, like Double 11, 12/12, etc. And for cosmetics, like we've seen, for example, Clarins, who did a IP collaboration with Marvel in 2019 with a limited edition makeup set. We've seen, for example, Fenty Beauty, the brand of Rihanna, who did a limited edition makeup with Haiti. So Haiti is a very famous and trendy tea brand in China. Then we've seen like Perfect Diary, which is a very trendy Chinese brand, who've done amazing IP collaboration with like the Forbidden City, the Met Museum. They've done it also with Oreo. And this is very creative and interesting for Chinese consumers. They really love the packaging and having new products. So when they have this kind of IP collaboration, it usually do a big buzz in the market. And that's really something that is less common in the West. And I think that would actually work pretty well. But that's definitely something that can be interesting.
What about homegrown cosmetics? The Chinese cosmetic industry, the locally homegrown stuff. There's been a real rise in the number of Chinese cosmetic companies. What are they doing? Break it down a little bit. Talk to us about what companies are coming up, how many companies are coming up. What are they doing that is giving them success competing against global brands, regardless of the fact that it's in China or not? It's really difficult to compete against global brands regardless, given their history and their market share and their loyalty. How are they doing it?
Yeah, it's actually a good transition because we were talking about Perfect Diary doing a lot of IP collaboration. Perfect Diary is an example of a very rising Chinese brand. And to name all other ones, there is also Chendo doing a makeup, Chinese brand. There's also Florasis that is doing very good. There are some brands launched by Chinese influencers like Big Eve, which is a brand from Zhongdai, Fan Beauty from the influencer Fan Bingbing. So there's definitely a lot of Chinese brands launching. And I think what they do very good and why they are so successful is that because they are Chinese, they know very well the market. They know very well Chinese consumer, Chinese culture. So when they do marketing campaigns, like we mentioned, the IP, it really resonates with Chinese consumers. The IP that Perfect Diary did with the Forbidden City, I mean, the product was so beautiful. It was so amazing, and Chinese consumers really loved it. So they know really well how to market to Chinese consumers. Another thing that they do good and that makes them so successful is that they have really big ambitions. They're expanding massively online, but also offline. For example, Perfect Diary had like 200 stores this year, but they're planning to open 600 by 2022. And they really want to become a leader in China's cosmetics. So they're putting a lot of investment to do so. And I think the third thing that that makes them successful is that they know all the latest marketing trends that are expanding in China. So I don't know if WeChat is launching a new feature, if Tmall is launching a new feature, they will be the first one, wanting to try it and using it because they are very familiar with the environment. So that's really the three key things that makes them, popping out of the crowd and succeeding well in the Chinese market.
I think from my point of view, it's starting to sound very busy and very complex and very competitive in the cosmetics industry in China. So kudos to you for just walking right in there and go toe to toe with them yourself. Congratulations on that. These Chinese companies, how are they going to compete globally? Are they going to try to compete globally? It has been, and maybe the cosmetics industry is different, from what I've begun to understand, whether it's apparel or other things, they don't necessarily need, because market in China is so huge, nor do they really try or even really ever aim to be successful outside of China. Whereas most of the rest of the world is pretty geared up and always wanting to expand and always get into new markets. This is one of the biggest differences I found with Chinese companies or brands is that, from regardless of industries, that they don't typically have that same thirst or appetite for global expansion. So what would you say about the Chinese cosmetics brands? Are they looking global? If so, how are they planning to compete? If not, why?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think you're right. If you're a Western brand, you want to export to China because Chinese consumers love consumer brands, but it's actually different the other way around. I don't think Western people want to try a Chinese product. I think unfortunately there is still a lack of trust, regarding what is made in China. They would maybe assimilate it to something very cheap, not good quality. So I think it will take time to change the minds of the Western people, and I think Chinese brands know it. If they want to export, they will have to be really transparent about how the products are made, ingredients. That's really something that is important in the West. We've seen big trend rising of vegan and cruelty-free and organic products, which is not like labels that are actually famous and used in China. So I think it will take time. I don't have any example of a Chinese cosmetic brand that is doing well abroad, but hopefully one day.
Well, and animal testing, that was always such a huge thing. I mean, and you mentioned it exactly. And I was going to ask, the vegan or bacteria culture or animal testing or what have you. If that doesn't matter, I mean, are you literally changing your packaging when you create the products or the same product from the same brand going to China? Does it just have a different look and feel?
So in China, the test on animal had just been removed, but before that, if you could only sell in cross-border channels if you were a vegan brand or didn't want your product to be sold on the Chinese market. So basically, if you're a vegan brand, the only channel you could use was Tmall Global, the cross-border platform. And that's what most of the European vegan brands are using. But now they will be able to sell on a Tmall Classic and other e-commerce platform without doing this test. But on cross-border platform, you couldn't change your packaging. That was actually the goal, is like Chinese consumers shopping directly in French or US pharmacies and buying products like they are exactly on the home market. So they wouldn't change anything on the packaging. But if a brand wanted to sell offline in China, so they would have to register the product, and then they would have to change the packaging and have the Chinese, explanation, Chinese on the packaging.
I've tried to wean COVID discussion out of a lot of my podcasts because I'm kind of over giving it oxygen. It's there, it's here, it's a thing. But I will ask, how has COVID impacted marketing, purchasing, branding, strategy, any of that? How, just even the products that people are buying?
Sure. So in terms of products, we've seen a few trends emerging because people are wearing the mask. There's like this new type of skin issue, which is maskne or mask acne, which involves acne breaks out, from wearing a mask.
Is that a thing? Does that really happen?
Yeah, it does. It does.
I guess, okay, because of the oils and...
it does happen, especially if you're not changing your mask, regularly, or if you're, spending the whole day with it. So there have been a few keywords in China that have become quite strong on social media and on shopping platform, which is skin repair and also sensitive skin, because you use face mask all the time and you use disinfectant all the time. So they found their skin very sensitive and they desire a product that can help them, with this sensitivity. So that's why we've seen a lot of brands, like Aven, La Roche-Posay, SkinCeuticals, which are skincare brands focusing on sensitive skin, that their sales grew in China during the COVID period. And then in terms of marketing, I think the switch has been going even more digital. We talked about live streaming. I mean, the live streaming users just boomed during the COVID because there was only where you could actually shop. So that's definitely something that was impacted by COVID. And then, in terms of product also, lipstick sales have lowered for sure, compared to eyeshadows who grew quite a lot. Ashley, who was on the podcast, shared this as well, which I found quite funny.
Yeah, I actually brought that up too, just saying anything, there was she was talking about, inside body, outside body. We talked about that kind of stuff. And then she was like above mask, below mask it's now a thing.
Yeah.
Why not cosmetic companies create face masks, and maybe they already do, that have lotions and things in them already to help make your skin. I mean, you're wearing a mask to go to bed. You wear a mask in the morning or what have you. You're actually wearing a mask during the day. It should be helpful. Is this a thing yet?
It's not yet, but you got something.
I feel like if it had some nice lotions or something, I mean, I remember now, I mean, they've gone somewhere like Kleenex, right? Tissues. Yeah. You can get tissues with oils and tissues with lotions and tissues with all these things. And just because you're wiping and using them on your skin, who knows? Maybe there's a whole market for something there that, we'll go together on that. We'll share the IP on that 50-50. Now, what about L'Oreal? Let's talk about L'Oreal a little bit more specifically. What are you bringing to the table in your new role? And I know that you were only a few weeks in, so I don't mean to put you on the spot just yet. But what are some strategy frames that you're starting to kind of think and put together for L'Oreal? And what's maybe the strategy for L'Oreal over the next year or two with regards to the cosmetics in China?
Sure. So, L'Oreal has more than 20 brands, so it's a very big group, and every brand have, entered the China at different stages. So it really depends on the brand. My role would be to focus on brands that either need a boost or brands that are not yet launched in the China market. My role will be to based in Paris, do a lot of education about China because, the teams in France are the one, thinking about what would be the next product launch the next 2-3 years. They're the one, creating assets for globally, all the visuals that will be used in China. So they have to know also what consumer wants and, what would be working well in China. So that will be my role in the first step, is really educating the local team to adapt their asset, their products to Chinese consumers, and also be the bridge with the local Asian teams to make sure that the headquarters fill them with all the assets they need, all the things they need from the headquarters to create interesting marketing strategy, product campaign. We've talked about the IP, for example. So the headquarters also has to come up with ideas or a new product or a limited edition. So this has to come from the headquarters. So I will be, leading this type of projects to make sure that the brand can have successful campaign and boost their sales even more in the Chinese market.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Wish you all the success.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy for you in your new role. Somebody maybe in your network, outside your network, or somebody that you're just a fan of that we can say, hey, Chloé says you should be on our podcast. Who is somebody in your network that you would like to hear? If you would listen to our show, who would you like to hear being on our podcast?
Sure. I would say Yassine Regragui. He's an old colleague of mine. He was working in Alipay, and he's really an amazing fintech expert. So everything related to fintech, digital currency. He lived in China for more than 6 years, so he's also a very good China expert. And yeah, I'm sure he will be very interesting. A very different industry and sector, but I'm sure you'll get to have a lot of insight from him as well.
Yeah, finance in China is also incredibly innovative sector for sure. Anyway, Chloé Goncalves, Asia e-commerce manager at L'Oréal, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Growing a company is hard. Doing it in a foreign market? Exponentially so. The best piece of advice I can give you is not to do it alone. When you start looking across the pond for further expansion possibilities, and I sincerely hope that you do, make sure you choose the right partners to do it with. My good friends at WPIC Marketing and Technologies have almost 20 years of experience helping brands, just like yours, enter China. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Negotiation, and if you're interested in being a guest or want to connect with me or any of our team, please reach out to us at podcast@wpic.co. And be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. 再见.